The duality of Sigmund Freud, why sex became weird. Today in this video, we're going to be talking about a very important topic. Sigmund Freud was the founding father of psychoanalysis. He came up with many theories in his lifetime. He was a very controversial figure. People disagree with his theories today. I want to create this video to explain certain points about Sigmund Freud's theories, why he became so controversial, and where he was right and where he was wrong, and a little bit of a discussion. Sigmund Freud was born into a time when psychology was literally at the point where it was about to explode, where people weren't just taking religion as a truth, but they were trying to counteract the idea of religion, and people were actually just getting to understand, getting to know how people operate, why we've got certain instincts, certain things in our adulthood comes out from childhood, stuff like repression and the unconscious. And Sigmund Freud became that person who understood many of those topics really well. He created a cult following. A lot of people followed him really because he was such a charismatic person. He was such a good thinker, and he explained his ideas very, very directly. That's why a lot of people don't like his theories today, because it comes across as slightly weird, slightly obsessive towards sexual instincts. Sigmund Freud came up with certain theories that today would be seen as outdated. However, people still use a lot of his ideas in therapy, a lot of the ways he approached therapy, because don't forget, back then, psychology was just starting out. It was just growing. It was a field that was growing. Psychotherapists would have their own clinics, and on the side, they would be doing their research, whereas now we've got people with their own clinics, we've got people working for the NHS, we've got people in research, we've got people doing studies, clinical trials, so it's completely different to what it was back then. There's a big distinction in psychology of what we know now and what was commonly accepted back then in Sigmund Freud's time. The psychology that was widely accepted was the fact that you do things because of certain things that have happened to you in the past. However, now we understand that what we do in the future is because of a goal that we're trying to attain. So it's moving into the future. So back then, he looked at people's past and said, you know what, you're having these tendencies, for example, something as simple as nail biting, because at some stage in your childhood development, you were either neglected or you weren't given the right attention that you needed. This is important to understand, because Sigmund Freud came up with this childhood development theory of the fact that there's different stages in a child's life. So I can't tell you the exact stages, but from maybe 2 to 3 years old, there's the phallic stage, then there's it starts off with the anal stage, then it goes into the oral stage. He would come up with this theory that if you do have a certain ailment or a certain psychological issue, that it stems from childhood. The problem with this is that a lot of people who came to his clinic, well, some people at least, would say, actually, that didn't happen, or I don't remember that happening, or even if it was something, relationship with your mother that happened in your adolescence, they would come back and say, no, actually, that didn't happen. But what Sigmund Freud would do, he would say, well, actually, the reason why you're saying it didn't happen is because you have certain defense mechanisms that are being played in your head. And this is why a lot of people see Sigmund Freud's theories as kind of a pseudoscience. So it's not 100% science. In order to understand Sigmund Freud properly, you've got to look at the fact that he actually has a background in medicine. So he was a neurologist. So he studied at uni as a neurologist, and he realized back then, and this is a very important point, that a lot of problems psychologically, people would see it was a case of hysteria. Now, hysteria back then was commonly known to be found in females. So this is where sexism played a massive role in life back then. And that's why, in a sense, Sigmund Freud kind of brought up this problem into the air and said, look, actually, what we understand now is not actually true. And he's trying to persuade people that actually I've got a theory based on speaking to so many people that there's certain things that are being uncovered, that are being repressed by ourselves or suppressed, and they are found in our unconscious, subconscious mind. He went to great lengths to understand the subconscious and unconscious mind. He even went as far as taking cocaine. He wrote a massive paper about, I think it's called the Uber drug. Basically, it says that cocaine is the world's best drug. And this paper was a viral sensation. Everybody started reading it, and it got so popular that one of his best friends actually got addicted to cocaine. And then later in life, Sigmund Freud went against what he said about cocaine and about drugs. So that's why it's really important to understand the full lifespan of a scientist, and which theories he actually disproved himself, which theories he thought, you know what, actually I might not be right here. And that, to me, is a key indicator of a really intelligent person, a person with a lot of wisdom, because he can see his own idea and he can disprove it, or he can say, actually, I retract that statement and it wasn't actually true. Why Freud became so controversial? Now, Freud became controversial because of certain theories, which I've not explained just yet. He became controversial because of the theory of the Oedipus complex. He stated that a person will be attracted to the opposite sex because in childhood, they tried to attract whether it was a son attracting the mother or a daughter attracting the father. And he explained that in terms of the Oedipus complex, that the child is trying to win over the parent, essentially, which is an interesting theory, because you might think, you know what, growing up, a child doesn't actually know what's going on. He or she's basically living on pure instinct. So to say that his theory is completely outlandish, you might want to be careful. When you do research, study that theory in depth, you realise actually it's quite a crazy theory. It's a theory that not many people accept, especially in our day and age today, because it's assuming a lot and it doesn't take into account people who have attraction for the same sex, for example. He also overemphasized sex. Now, this is very important because he was trying to become a pioneer in speaking about a topic that was undervalued, essentially, a topic that was seen as taboo. We see this a lot in our day and age. So let's take somebody like Andrew Tate. He realizes when he speaks about really controversial topics, he gets more views. As a human being who's trying to get the attention of as many people as possible, and a charismatic person, he does that instinctually, he or she. So it would make sense why Sigmund Freud overemphasized sex, and it would make sense why he did do that, because he must have realized that actually this is catching a lot of traction, and a lot of people are realizing that this is actually an issue that needs to be talked about, and it's something that we've been suppressing as a society. Freud's influence in today's world. Freud is very influential in pop culture, in books, in film, in literature, and how we talk about sexuality. A lot of his theories and ways of dealing with clients and realizing that the therapist and client relationship matters a lot, they are used in today's age. So it's not like we've completely discarded him.